What is going on, gunfighters? Saddle up for another episode of Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way. God is number one, period. I hope to keep him number one, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different. Today is going to kind of be a cornucopia of different gun-related topics and training topics. I'll probably title it something akin to MythBusters or Guns and Gunfighting Myths or something like that. But common things we tout kind of gets bantered around in the gun community. Well, everybody knows that blank, and it may not be true. And they'll probably something on a wide range of topics. Whether you're into deer hunting in the woods of Maine or doing combat roles in your body armor kicking down doors, there'll likely be something in today's episode for you. I'm going to plug in the bio, and then we'll get into the episode. Who am I? A question we should all ask ourselves. I am, first and foremost, a servant of God, made in his very own image, a follower of Jesus Christ, a simple man called by God to the Great Commission to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Next, a little bit about my background and what God has allowed me to do and blessed me to do in life. Grew up what most would consider very poor in the backwoods of the southeastern and mid-Atlantic United States, hunting and fishing. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. So a decorated Marine Corps combat veteran. Infantry assaultman. After the combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also a veteran of law enforcement. I served with L.A.P.D. I was a sworn peace officer, a cop for L.A.P.D. I worked regular patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. One of those more specialized assignments was warrant service, fugitive recovery. Also had some other law enforcement roles. I am an F.B.I. certified firearms instructor and been certified by another 3-letter government agency in a lot of firearms and training things. I've also been a private contractor, worked in the private sector pertaining to tactics and gunfighting and protecting America from enemies foreign and domestic. I served as the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a large metropolitan area. That was our primary mission, to stop active shooters, which sadly are a thing in America today. I've also been blessed to do quite a bit of competition shooting. Started my first formal competitions even before joining the Marine Corps at 17. I had won more shooting competitions than I can remember. I have competed in all manner of disciplines in shooting. I've been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion, West Coast regional champion. Like I said, been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. Mentioned hunting. I've hunted to put meat on the table starting when I was a child. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide, hunting and slaying all manner of beast. And I don't apologize for that. Humbled to be the host of 3 podcasts. Simple Man Sermons, Alpha Male Podcast, and Gunfighter Life. Obviously, as things not mentioned, I've been blessed to do many other things. But, again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, a believer and follower of the Bible, the Word, Jesus Christ. and I don't apologize for that. With that, let's transition into today's topic. Let's start with one that's probably going to upset a lot of people. Why not? The Franken Glock. The Glock is the best handgun myth. People that don't actually run Glocks. And by Franken Glock, I mean the people that tout how great Glock is, but you look at their Glock and it doesn't have Glock sights. It doesn't have a Glock trigger. It doesn't have a Glock barrel. The may or may not have a Glock slide. The frame has probably been stippled or dremeled or changed. And you have to ask yourself, at what point is it still a Glock? Because you could literally make, I think, some kind of Franken Glock with not using any actual Glock parts. So at which point does it stop being a Glock? And if you really believed in the Glock perfection motto, then you wouldn't have to do anything to modify it, obviously, because it would be fine the way that it was. I do know a few people that run Glocks that run factory stock Glocks with like factory stock sights and factory stock trigger. There are a few of those tactical unicorns out there. But most people that say how great Glocks are, you look at their Glock and a bunch of the stuff on there that pertains to shooting is not a Glock. So just put that in your brain and pontificate on it a little bit. Throw that in your coffee pot and let it percolate. Whatever common vernacular you want to throw in there. But think about that. It really is such a great gun. Why do you have to spend so much modifying it? Another thing I'm going to talk about is shooting statistics. So specifically when we look at like defensive shootings and law enforcement shootings. I've been getting flack at this for the way I trained for years. When, everybody knows that the average distance of a police shooting of a self-defense shooting is X yards, 3 yards. To know training to get hits at 50 yards with a pistol is stupid. Or even training and qualifying at 25 yards is stupid. Because, everybody knows that, the average distance is 3 yards. Well, friends, let me explain to you how statistics work. Let's say that, and before you think this is not right, look into actually how the statistics are made. Don't just agree with them because you like them. See if, police officer suicides are not counted in those statistics. See if domestic violence is not counted in those statistics. See if gangland-style executions are not counted in those statistics. Are they considered a gunfight, somebody is shot, and somebody dies? A lot of times suicides are counted in there. Let's say, sadly, there's one person that commits suicide. And there's 2 Mexican drug cartel-style gangland executions. And there's 1 domestic violence scenario that happens inside a bedroom. And there's 1 shooting where a police officer shoots it out with a traffic incident. And let's say they shoot at each other from across the road. Let's say that's a 35-yard distance. That's going to give you a median distance of around 7 yards. If you round it up, all those other ones to 1 meter, 1 yard. It'll give you an average of about 7. And the FBI has been telling us for years that that's about the average distance. But is that what you should be training for? Unless you yourself in those other scenarios, and they shouldn't apply to you. Yeah, maybe fight that ends on the ground would apply to you, so you should have those skills too. But in actual defensive shooting scenarios, they can happen at much greater distances. So before you start regurgitating statistics, spouting them off like, everybody knows that the median distance is. First, look into the criteria and see whether or not they apply to you. And then ask yourself this one question, gunfighter. Are you training for the bare minimum, for the average? Are you training to be the best you can be? My standard, and it has been for years, is headshots at 50 yards. That's my standard for my fundamentals. And the backbone and core of my training with a handgun standing at 50 yards. I'll generally reduce that to a 4-inch circle if I can only get 25 yards away. Why would I do that? Well, one, that's a static environment, and I'm trying to master the fundamentals. You only ever practice getting hits at 3 yards or 7 yards on a static range. What do you think is going to happen? You've just been running or wrestling on the ground, or you've just been shot and you're bleeding out. Do you think your fundamentals are going to get better or degrade significantly? If you can make good hits at 50 yards, getting good hits at 7 yards is much easier. If you struggle getting hits on a silhouette at 7 yards, And what do you think is going to happen with significant blood loss or when you're way winded and out of breath? So that's another thing that I take exception to in the gun world and the gun community. Push yourself to be the best you can be. If you can get good hits at 50 yards, if you do happen to get in a gunfight at 3 yards, then you're good to go. If you only ever practice at 3 yards and you get in a gunfight at 35 yards and you just expect to randomly hit your target because you really, really want to, that's not really how that works. Here's another big one, and I'm going to kind of give you both sides of this. The .22 long rifle for defense. Some people will say, everybody knows that the .22 is garbage for defense. It's underpowered. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't even be considered for a defensive cartridge. And I would say there are plenty of people that have died at the hands of the .22 that might disagree with that. There's also the people that say the .22 is just as good as. There's plenty of people get shot and die with the .22. It's just as good as 9mm. But I'd say make sure you're looking at this. I'd say make sure you're looking at the .22 soberly. Now, I have done quite a bit of archery hunting and archery competition. I don't mention that in the bio because it's usually not relevant. This is gunfighter life. I would certainly take, a Ruger 10/22 over a bow and arrow or a crossbow in any kind of defensive encounter. Certainly better than that, but I wouldn't take, let's say, a .22 handgun over a 9mm handgun unless there's some kind of crazy stipulation like the 9mm is a single shot or something crazy like that. It's like a 9mm Derringer versus a Ruger Mark IV and .22, but just as close to apples, and call it apples and pears because it's not apples and apples, but as close as you can get it. A good reliable 9mm handgun and a good, almost as reliable .22 handgun. Of course I'm going to take the 9mm. It's not just as good. That doesn't mean a .22 is like shooting marbles at somebody with a slingshot. It should be treated with all the respect and safety that you treat any other cartridge with. Another big one, and I hope that you already know this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's still a thing, that you don't have to aim a shotgun. You can just give somebody, your wife, somebody, a shotgun in their house, and they can point it in a general direction, and because it spreads out, they can hit a target. Well, I'd say for this, take whatever distance you expect them to shoot that inside that home. Shoot it at a piece of cardboard and see how much that spread, how large that pattern is. It's probably about the size of your fist. I don't care if it's an open choke. I don't care if it's a sawed-off shotgun. It's probably going to be about the size of your fist. The most common household distances. I tried to think of a way to do this safely. So I'd say get a airsoft gun akin to a shotgun. No, I'm not a tactical airsofter. I don't really know, but I'm sure they make one that looks like a shotgun. Put it down, keep it pointed downrange in a safe direction, wear your proper PPE. I don't know. I'm not an airsofter. Whatever they call themselves, airsofties, airsoft sommeliers, whatever they call themselves. I'm not one, but use a proper PPE, keep it pointed downrange, spin that person around just one time, like it's a tactical version of pin the tail on the donkey. Have the RO, the person watching them, make sure they keep it pointed in a safe direction, and just have them point towards the target without aiming and pull the trigger. Have them do it 2 or 3 times to get a good average. And then walk up to that hole in that piece of cardboard and draw a circle around it about the size of your fist. And then tell me you don't have to aim a shotgun. You absolutely do have to aim a shotgun. Shotguns are, in my opinion, the best home defense weapon. They are absolutely devastating as far as common small arms that the average person is going to have is. They are devastating. They are ridiculously effective. They are supremely versatile. But that doesn't mean you don't have to aim them. It's just ridiculous. They do spread out, but at common defensive, especially home defensive scenarios, they don't spread out a lot. You maybe get an inch or two on either side of the center of that pattern. Shotguns are great for a lot of reasons, but you still have to aim them. The next one I'm going to talk about is the kind of disrespect for the older generation of the gun-owning community. A lot of times they're referred to as FUDs. I would consider what we're in now kind of the generation 2.0. I've been blessed that I grew up kind of in the transition. Before I joined the Marine Corps, I grew up putting food on the table and kind of that old school, rural Southern culture. And I'm blessed for that. A lot of people in today's gun culture, they just write those people off. Well, if it's not a black AR-15 and a Glock, or not even a Glock, it's not even cool enough. You got to have a SIG 320 with a Trigicon on it. If you're still shooting something with wood on it, then you're a FUD. That's, kind of generalizing there, but you get what I'm driving at, hopefully. You smell what I'm stepping in. And to that I would say, respect your elders. For it is written, you shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man. A lot of those older generation you might tout as FUDs, while you're out there with your, super expensive rifle with your super high BC bullets and all your computers for laser rangefinders and kestrels and all this other stuff, trying to shoot a deer, those men have likely taken many more deer than you, many more elk than you. And they may have done it with a Woodstock 30-30 and then strapped it on top of a station wagon. We should be learning from the older generation. We should be learning as much as we can while they're still out and shooting, while they're still around. All that wisdom should not be lost. And you shouldn't think that just because something is newer that it's better. Now, I said this in the Patreon chat earlier today. I don't want to be a Luddite. I don't want to discount new technology just because it's new. But I also don't want to assume that just because something's new, that it's better. Both of those are the wrong way to look at it. Be circumspect, examine a new technology, and see if it really is better. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just noise. Sometimes it's just marketing. This new push today about you got to have super high BC bullets and you got to have a giant scope on your rifle. And your rifle, if your rifle doesn't shoot half MOA, it's just not even worth having. And if your cartridge isn't good out past, 800 meters, what are you doing? You're way behind the curb. And then ask yourself, can you even get a line of sight anywhere that you hunt out to 800 meters? If you live east of the Mississippi, there are a few exceptions. I know the old Creedmoor matches were held, in New York, I believe. But if those criteria are not applicable to you, then why are you worried about all that marketing noise and hype? The point of deer hunting is not to look cool with your Gucci camouflage pattern that's hot this year and your super cool rifle with your super high BC bullets. The point of deer hunting is to put meat on the table. If that old guy that you refer to as a FUD goes out in his red flannel shirt, his Jones hat with a lever action 35 Remington, and comes home with a buck strapped to the top of his station wagon, and you spent who knows how many grand riding around in your quad and come home empty-handed, who's the FUD in that scenario? As I recall, Elmer Fudd was the one that went hunting a lot and didn't really shoot anything. Didn't take any game. And I think probably the last one for the day is one that I've heard in the tactical community, in the concealed carry community. I'm going to try and explain it in a way that makes sense because it certainly doesn't make sense to me. Something to the effect of, and I've heard this from multiple people, yeah, I have a better gun, but I'm going to carry this gun because if I get in a shooting and the police take it from me, I won't care that much because it's a cheap gun. And I've heard phrases or sentences tangential to that. They're like, if I get in a shooting, I don't want them to take my nice gun. And you really, I try to make sense of that, but I really rationally can't. It tells me that you care more about a gun than you care about your life or somebody else's life. And that's not really a gunfighter. That's some kind of weird person that puts a gun on a pedestal it ought not be on. You're telling me you care more about your gun in a safe than surviving? Care more about that gun than being the best you can be in a gunfight? To put it simply, you care more about that gun than drawing breath and being able to protect yourself and the people that you love most in this life and your neighbor, because you're to love your neighbor as yourself and you're not to stand idly by while somebody takes the life of your neighbor. Care more about keeping a gun pristine and not letting it get put into police evidence? I I have a hard time making sense of that. And I've heard that. I've heard that from people, like plural. Can't remember exactly what they said in conversation, but something like that. If you have, let me rephrase that. Whatever the best gun you have for the situation, if it's at all possible for you to have that gun on you and you're better with it, that's the gun you should have. It's like saying you have a new F-150 that you can drive, but I also have a Geo Metro and the brakes don't work. But I'm going to drive that to work every day because if I get in an accident, sure, I might die, but my F-150 is going to be fine. Sure, that Geo Metro with faulty brakes may be more likely to get me killed, but boy, that new F-150, I really don't want to scratch it. Anyway, with that, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode of kind of myth busting, kind of not just believing, oh, well, everybody knows that this or everybody knows that. Take a step back, be sober, and look at things the right way. If you like this and you want more, make sure you subscribe so when new episodes come out, you get them. And if you want more, check us out, goodshepherdtraining.com. goodshepherdtraining.com. As a thanks for staying tuned through all of that, all of those similes and metaphors that you probably didn't need, tactical tip of the day. What's more tactical than a Sharpie? If a Sharpie is not part of your EDC, you really should consider it. Especially if you're a gunfighter. If you shoot a lot, if you practice a lot, dry fire, live fire, I think you'll find, not just in shooting, but in everyday life, a Sharpie comes in handy. Anything from marking your hands where they sit on the gun when you're dry firing really well to make sure you can repeat it later, to when you walk up to your target and marking on it, to getting to the range and realizing that you got a new pair of boots and your blood type's not on there, so you reach down and Sharpie real quick your blood type on your boots, because that's something that gunfighters do. There's who knows how many other reasons. I can't recall how often in a month I use my tactical Sharpie. What makes a Sharpie tactical? What's the fact that you're so tactical, it just kind of gets coated with your tacticalness. But seriously, a Sharpie in your EDC for a lot of reasons is a good idea. Marking, like we talked about in your dry fire, if you get where your form is just really good and you're just really nailing it in your dry fire technique, mark your hands where they fit together or mark a certain spot where they come together on that gun so that you can repeat it. One of the keys to shooting well is consistency. It's that quote attributed to Einstein. I don't think he actually said it, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Well, flip-flop that. How can you expect to shoot in the same place every time if you do different things all the time? You have to be consistent if you want to shoot consistently. So mark the areas on your hands where they come in contact with the gun so you can repeat them and be consistent. With that, even more important than the tactical tip of the day, the tactical verse of the day. Because if you win 100 gunfights and go to hell, you have to ask yourself, what was it all for? The tactical Bible verse of the day coming out of the Torah. We talked about it earlier. You shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man. And fear your God. I am the Lord. Show respect to your elders, because God willing, one day we'll be elders and we'll be older. And we'll want people to listen when we're trying to pass on wisdom to the next generation. With that, men, thanks for listening to Gunfighter Life. Have a blessed day.